May the 4th be with you, everyone. I'm sensing a disturbance, as if millions of Star Wars fans are crying out for a review of Star Wars the deck building game, and I'm only too happy to oblige. This is a game that I came across by pure chance, but something about it really force-pulled me in from the start. But before we get into the review, let me give you an overview of how it plays. During the game, you and your opponent will each have a number of bases, each with their own ability and a quantity of hit points that they can endure before being destroyed. The first player to destroy all of their opponent's bases is the winner of the game. Like most deck building games, you will each start with a deck of cards that are not in themselves very powerful, but give you the means to slowly add more powerful cards, which you will select based on their synergies and abilities to suit your strategy in the game. However, as you add more cards, the statistical likelihood of drawing a specific card reduces, meaning you will want to carefully manage not only which cards are in your deck, but also the number of cards in your deck overall. Another consideration is the balance of the force scale, which tracks the influence of this power on the game state. While the tracker is towards your faction's side, the force is said to be with you, which can trigger additional effects on certain cards. If the force is all the way towards your side, you will also gain an extra resource cube at the start of your turn. However, as the game progresses, your opponent may play cards that will move the force to be stronger with the light or dark side depending on their faction. In each turn, you will first gain resources from any capital ships you have in play. Capital ships will remain in your play area between turns until they have been destroyed, unlike most other cards which will immediately return to your discard pile to be recycled into your deck in future turns. There are a number of actions available to you during your turn which you can generally take in any order and as many times as you wish. However, you will probably start by playing some cards from your hand. To do so, you simply take the card from your hand and place it face up in front of you. If it carries a resource symbol, shown here, the card generates resources immediately that you can use to purchase other cards for your deck. Likewise, if this symbol is shown, you will adjust the balance of the force track an equivalent number of steps towards you. The card may also have special abilities, which you can choose to use or not as you like, rotating the card to show its ability has been used this turn. Many cards will also have an attack value, which is used to mount assaults against your opponent. For example, you could group up several of these cards and commit to attacking your opponent's base. The total attack value of the cards would represent the amount of damage the enemy base receives, assuming no other modifiers are in play. If this is greater than the number of hit points left on the base is destroyed and your opponent will select another at the start of their next turn. Otherwise, damage cubes are added to the base card to show the damage sustained. If your opponent has capital ships in play, these will take damage, distributed according to the attacker's preference, rather than the enemy base, until they have all been destroyed. Capital ships have their own hit points, which operate the same way as those on the base. When destroyed, these ships will return to the discard pile like any other unit, and may therefore be drawn again and reused later in the game. You will undoubtedly want to improve your starting deck to access new abilities in-game and increase the amount of damage your forces can do to the enemy faction in battle. New cards are purchased from the row of cards between you and your opponent, called the Galaxy row. This will likely contain a mix of Rebel cards, which only the Rebel player can purchase, Empire cards, only available to the Empire player, and neutral cards available to both. A small deck of Outer Rim pilots sits at the end of the row to ensure that you can usually purchase something, though it is important to note that purchasing cards is not mandatory. To purchase a card, you'll take a number of the resource cubes you have already generated, equal to the number in the gold circle on the card you wish to purchase, and exchange them for the card. This new card is placed face up on top of your discard pile, to be incorporated into your draw pile when your deck recycles. The space in the Galaxy row left behind is immediately filled by a new card drawn from the top of the Galaxy deck. You can continue to purchase further cards as long as you have sufficient resource cubes left to pay for them, and any resource cubes remaining at the end of your turn will be discarded into the general supply. One of the cooler mechanics of the Star Wars deck building game is bounty hunting, or sabotage if you're Rebel scum, which allows you to disrupt your opponent's ability to buy cards that they might want. When a card from your opponent's faction enters the Galaxy row, it is rotated so that it is the right way up from your opponent's perspective. Once done, the target value and reward if you wish to attack the card is the right way up for you. Instead of allocating your forces to attacking the enemy's capital ships and bases, you can instead allocate them to attack the cards in the Galaxy row. Presuming that this attack successfully delivers hit points equal to or higher than the target number, you will gain the reward displayed on the card and cause the card to be discarded into the Galaxy row discard pile, preventing your opponent from recruiting it for their deck. However, cards in the Galaxy row do not take damaged cubes, so if the target number is not met for some reason, then nothing happens. Deciding when to use the Sabotage Bounty Hunter option is critical. The Galaxy row will immediately refresh the space the card occupied, so you want to do so when there is less chance the incoming card will be better than the card you sabotaged. But if you're determined to make sure your opponent doesn't have access to Darth Vader in the battles to come, this could be an action you prioritise over a base assault. Once you have taken as many of all of these actions as you wish to and have cards to support, you will discard the unit cards you have in play, along with any cards left in your hand, and redraw 5 cards from your deck, shuffling and forming a new deck from your discard pile if there are not enough left to draw up to a hand of 5. Play then passes to your opponent, who will select a new base if their previous one was destroyed during your turn. If they are unable to do so because you have already destroyed the number of bases agreed at the start of the game, then you are victorious. The game manages to pack significant variation into a relatively small handful of mechanics. This is most evidenced through the various abilities on the cards, adding both flavour and tactical options to your deck. It's also not a particularly long game, and you can adjust this length by agreeing a larger or smaller number of destroyed bases required for victory when you set up the game. This is crucial, as the game is unlikely to be a one and done. Once you have played a round or two, you will start to learn what different strategies your deck can be built around and how to optimise for those strategies. If I'm honest, the rulebook feels a little long and cluttered for such a straightforward game, but there is genuine effort to provide examples, clarify ambiguity and ensure the best possible experience. The rules also include a number of optional additions, including the ability to pay off neutral units without adding them to your deck, and a secret base mechanic. There is even a link to downloadable rules for a 4-player 2v2 version of the game, albeit this requires you to have 2 copies of the game between you in order to play. Star Wars the deck building game is a lot of fun to play. I found the capital ship mechanic particularly satisfying, enabling you to build a fleet of defensive ships around your bases to rival the cinematic set pieces from the film franchise. Additionally, whilst I don't claim to have played every deck building game available, this has to be among the most accessible for the casual gamer, bolting unique rules into the game through card abilities rather than overcomplicating the core mechanics. I'd certainly have no hesitation recommending it to those less familiar with deck builders. This isn't a perfect game. The balance of the Force mechanic in particular seems to have less impact on the game than most fans might expect, with those cards that can influence the Force seemingly limited or just not preferable to other cards of similar cost. Though I appreciate that it may simply be that I and those I have played against in this game have chosen strategies that don't favour Force manipulation. It is also on the lighter end of the games we have reviewed on the channel to date, quick to pick up but also lacking the sort of depth that veteran board gamers may crave. But there is something immensely satisfying about building a blockade of capital ships to protect your base, or launching said fleet against an enemy base. Meanwhile, the opportunity to sabotage or bounty hunt your opponent's cards in the Galaxy row evokes, albeit to a lesser extent, the ground operations of the 2 factions, eliminating key forces before they can become a threat. With 90 Galaxy cards in the game, you're spoiled for choice when it comes to cards to add to your deck, and replayability is greatly aided by the fact you are likely to not see all the possible cards in a single round. The card range is very much focused on the canonical time frame of the original trilogy of Star Wars movies, with the additional inclusion of Rogue One, so you won't see Gungans or combat droids or anything from the most recent 3 films in the deck, but that doesn't stop the Star Wars fans in my life getting excited whenever Jabba the Hutt or General Veers or Jyn Erso suddenly emerge into the Galactic row, not to mention more obvious inclusions such as the Skywalkers and Chewbacca. It's just good fun to be able to purchase such characters through the resource mechanic in the game and feel like you're the one writing the script of your own film. Will you favour attack fighters or ground troops, seek out noble Jedi, or build a force of scum and villainy by focusing on neutral cards? You get to choose whether to favour attack runs with X-Wings and Snowspeeders, whether you sabotage Imperial Star Destroyers before your opponent can claim them, and on which planets from the franchise you will station your forces for the battle to come. In the vast sea of board games available to the discerning gamer, Star Wars the deck building game might finish the day without a Medal of Yavin, but if you're looking for a smooth, easy to learn game to share with the casual gamer but Star Wars nut friend in your life, this game is more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Thanks for watching. We always enjoy hearing from our viewers, so do let us know if this review was helpful, whether you've played and enjoyed this game, and more importantly, what you'd like to see on the channel next. If you're new to the channel, we'd love it if you'd stick around to enjoy more of our eclectic tabletop gaming content, whether you're looking for game reviews, hobby tutorials or playthroughs. We cover a wide range of different games, so you're bound to find something that you like, and we can't wait to bring you even more content in the future. I need to go and ensure my primary exhaust port is torpedo proof, so until next time, let me remind you to work hard, play better, and take care out there.